Okay, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you for taking your time to address these important issues to deal with policing and police reform in Boston. Um, as we all know, the Boston Police Department has a reputation for being, you know, best in the country, and they promote kind of a thing that is, we don't have these problems here, not here. We're not Chicago, New York, LA, Ferguson, insert a city here, because here in Boston, we're great. Boston strong and all that, right? So we've been doing this series with people. See, you know what, too? I've been struggling with the verbiage because I really, it's only from my lack of a better term. I don't want to call people victims, right? Because people are not victims. These are people who have experienced the level of oppression or the disparities, the discrepancies, the racism, the profiling that we've been talking about. So these people are not victims, right? That whole word has a thing in it, and I really have to do better, in finding better language, to really get into it.
No,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, but people who have experienced some of what we're talking about at the hands of all these things. And now, too, many people here in the city, elected officials, politicians, police themselves, even journalists to a certain degree, they don't want to acknowledge that these things happen. And this is just why we've done these conversations. And in these other conversations, we've talked to people who have lost a loved one because of the police. In this case here, we have my young brother here, Keith Antonio, who is still with us. God bless. But at any moment, that circumstance could have took a flip, and then we could have been talking about something else, right? So all of these things need to be, in my opinion, discussed because they speak to a larger mentality of the disparate treatment that we are given and how we are racial profiled and all that. And so before I go any further, Keith, I want you to just introduce yourself, but then hopefully I'll be able to share the screen. We'll watch the video, and then we'll go from there. But first, please introduce yourself.
All right, well, good morning. I mean, as you all know, my name is Keith, but coming from me, Keith Antonio. Um, yeah, I mean, that incident happened 2 years ago. I mean, I definitely moved on from it, but it's still got a place in my heart, and especially with everything else going on in this world, definitely it's like I feel it more than ever now. So we having protests, everything's coming about, but we're still not getting these answers or solutions that we need. But glad to be here. Thanks for the invite, Jamal. Anybody have any questions, feel free.
Hey, look, we glad you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Real talk. All right. So let me see if I could share this screen right here. Yep, I can. There goes.
What up, PJ? I see you, PJ.
So that should be shared right there, boom. All right, so this is what came on Now This, and Now This is a major kind of news, service, and it comes on your Facebook, whatever, and they do quick news bits. But when this thing hit Now This thing got I want to say 3 million views, but whatever, at least like 2 million, because that's how people like Disu Samero ended up getting a hold of it. This thing, for whatever reason, just went viral. So here you go with old Officer Sourpuss here, Zachary Crossing.
You just out here killing time today?
Barbershop.
You look like you just got it done.
Because I'm clean.
What are you doing? It's noontime on a Thursday. What are you doing today?
What are you doing?
I'm working. What are you doing?
You're doing the wrong fucking thing. You ain't even stopping the wrong fucking person.
Which phone is that?
Stage 2. I already got 6.
What's your name?
Why you need to know my name? Why you stopping?
Huh? Kevin? Yeah.
Nah.
Sure?
Of course.
What is your name?
Why you wanna know my name?
You look like someone I'm just looking to speak to. It's not Kevin?
Wrong person.
What's your name?
You don't need to know my name.
It's not fine. What's your
Of
name?
course, because I knew you guys gonna circle around.
Yeah.
What's your name?
What's your name? It's Crossing. What's yours?
Why you bothering me? I knew you was gonna bother me ever since I got out my Uber. Yeah, I have my camera ready. Why you need to know my name? Why are you stopping me, actually?
Because we're just looking to speak to you.
I don't want to be spoken to.
What's up? What's happening? Where do you live?
You don't need to know that.
You just out here killing time
Going
today?
to the barbershop.
You just got a time.
Because I'm clean. Why you bothering me? Well, you still ain't telling me what you're stopping me for.
Your parents proud of you for flipping off the police?
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Have a great day,
Fucking stupid, man.
contributor. What do you do for work? What do you do for work? Anything?
I do a lot for work.
Like what? Like what?
I do a lot for work.
Go away.
I do a lot for
Go away.
work.
Go away.
Stupid.
Go away, tough guy. Go away.
The video displayed a lot of biases, stereotypical assumptions about my young brother's movement, about what can you possibly be doing in the middle of the day, as if he's up to nefarious purposes. We need more data, we need more transparency, we need more accountability, and we need to confront this narrative that the Boston Police Department doesn't right. There are so many examples of them not doing this right.
You just out here killing time
Going
today?
to the barbershop.
You just got a time.
Because I'm clean.
And that's that.
Yeah, I don't know how that makes you feel. That brought a lot
I
back.
mean, honestly, I don't watch the video so many times, heard so much about it that, I mean, it doesn't bother me anymore, but I definitely keep my guards up whenever, you know.
It just made me mad all over again.
I know, I feel that. I felt that. I heard you huff and puff. I feel that. I feel that. I'm pretty sure it definitely, it touches more people than it touches me, honestly. Cause like I'm over it, you know. I mean, I'm not over it, but kind of, sort of, you know. Happened so long ago, life goes on, so I just can't keep that on my shoulders, you know.
Absolutely, and not for nothing, you know. Too, a lot of our conversations in the community, too, in top terms of talking about like black men's mental health and all that. You from the get-go, you've had a great attitude about this. I got to say that about you. You know, I don't know what, you know, your spiritual practices or whatever you do to, you know, keep yourself centered and balanced. But from the time I've known you, you've been a very even-keeled guy, and you really have taken this much better than I would have.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
You know,
thanks.
it's because of that first incident I told you. You know, I
Right.
let them get me out of character. And, you know, I follow that I go through life every day with that same attitude. I won't let no one get me out of character nowadays, you know?
Okay, so that's a perfect example, because I know that story, but the people don't. So
Right.
so why don't you tell why don't you tell the people about your previous experience with the police that led you to how you handled that situation?
All right. So, I mean, I was working 5 a.m. shifts in Copley at the Sheridan. And, you know, I didn't want to get Uber that day. I had to save some money. So I took the bus real early in the morning. And early in the morning, I get stopped by like 2-3 cop cars saying that I fit the description. And, you know, I'm cranky when I wake up, and they just gave me the wrong attitude, so I gave the same energy right back towards them. And as I watched that first video, I'm just saying things I don't even want to say. I mean, I'm speaking my mind, but I will never let anybody get me like that after that. And ever since that incident, I just feel like I had a target on my back. Like, I'm walking on 2 feet, not even driving, getting pulled over by cops, you know?
Because that's you were on your way to work, if I remember. There had been some sort of break-in down Dudley.
Yeah, exactly.
And
well,
then
supposedly, yeah.
Supposedly, you don't even. Of course, you don't know. You're on your way to work.
Right.
But they snatch you up, and you gave them the business. You know, you got real saucy with the tongue.
Yeah,
right.
A little too saucy. Yeah.
Right.
For me.
Right. But at the end of the day, not for nothing too, you know, what people should know is, you know, as an activist and whatnot, we don't recommend it, but literally, like, there's nothing you can't say to an officer outside of a threat. You could say your mama stinks, she's ugly, I used to have sex with her. You could say all sorts of manner of horrible things. All sorts of horrible things. And that is protected speech. So while I wouldn't recommend it, and while you and I both know better now, and you know da-da-da-da, and while you didn't even do that, you know what I mean, at that particular time, but, you know, there was some saucy conversation because you had been targeted to be some sort of suspect in a potential breaking and entering, because you are guilty of not what they think, some black man who's just wandering around in the neighborhoods all times of night. You're out at these times and nights because you're working, and you work odd shifts, and you work overtime and overnight and this and that. So all of that, I think, played into that. But, you know, at the end of that situation, you left that knowing that these people, like, you know, not to take it there and to record it. Oh, you're muted. Yep, there you go.
Yeah. So you asked me a question before?
No, so I was saying, so for instance, that time you were recording at that time, and after that, you're like, yo, every instance I'm having with a cop, I'm recording.
Of course, because you never know what's gonna happen. You know, like the first incident, I was recording through Snapchat, so you know you can only get 60 seconds of film until you post it or save it or delete it. So every time I put my phone down, they would say a slick comment, and they told me I'm the type of person to get killed by police. You know, and then I'm like, whoa. That's when I put I was done recording until he said that. This is still the first incident. And I'm just like, hold on, let me start recording again. Can you repeat that? He did not want to say it for the camera. So at that point, I just kept recording nonstop until I walked away from that situation. And every single time I get stopped by the police, especially for no reason. If I know I ain't do good, if I know I didn't do wrong, there's no reason why I should be getting stopped. Just like a random person walking up to me that I don't know. I got to protect myself. I got to have my guards up. But now with these cops, they have a reputation where it's not so good with the black youth. So, of course, I'm going to pull out my phone and just record every incident. Every moment. So if anything happens, there's proof, regardless.
Okay. So now on to this particular day, you know, most of us, you know, some people are just tuning in, but most of us have already seen the video and all this. And on this particular day, another day like no other, la-di-da-di-da, you're on your way, you know, on your day off, going to the barbershop. We've seen the video, and so many things were wrong with that all at once.
Mm-hmm.
You know, from the questioning to the, you know, so at that particular moment, you know, what is your thought process? You're like, are you feeling like this could go really bad, or like, how were you feeling?
So honestly, I wanted to just get out of there and run, you know, but like not run, but just step my way off. But he like for some reason, he kept me there. Like, I was supposed to walk away. As soon as he stepped out of his car, he's like, wait. You know, and at that point, I didn't want to run because I didn't know what the hell was going to happen at that point, you know? But not running from them, but running away from the situation, you know? So that's pretty much it. I mean, that's how I felt.
And a lot of people don't know, too, by the time this video happened, he had already circled the whole block. You know,
Right.
So talk about that. Talk about the first moment when you saw them before what actually happened on the video.
Okay, so my barbershop is on Dorchester Ave. And I got into a lift, and it was supposed to drop me off on Dorchester Ave. But I didn't even put the address for my barbershop. I put address Fields Corner. So they let me off at Geneva. If you guys are familiar with Boston, you might visualize this. So I'm on Geneva. I get out. The Uber could go around, but I decided to walk. So I'm crossing the street from Geneva to get to Charles Street. And the car that let me go was the black Cruiser, which was the two cops. And, you know, you feel somebody staring at you from a mile away. So that's when I look, and they're just eyeing me like I did something wrong. So now this is when I pull my phone out of my pocket. I didn't start recording yet because they didn't bother me yet. So they kept it pushing because I walked up a one-way. So they could have went up there, but it was just a lot of traffic. It was a lot of movement at the time. So I'm walking up Charles Street to get to Dorchester Ave to my barbershop. And on one of the side streets, black Cruiser. So this is when I get my phone ready again. And everything happened. Hey, are you Kevin? No. Are you sure? Of course. And so on and so forth, you know? Crazy.
And all of that is crazy, too, because, you know, just to do the slight breakdown, of course, you know, if they ask you your name and then they ask you, are you sure? Well, that's a dummy question. Because, you know what I mean? Like, are you sure of your own name? Yeah, I'm pretty sure. You know what I mean? Boom. And then, you know, all the insinuations after that. What are you doing? Where are you going? Well, what are you doing at 12? And, you know, what your phone, it was just crazy. Right. And here's a fully employed guy, not only fully employed, you know, with a good job, a good job, a job in which grooming is important. You can't show up at your job looking like a bum.
Looking all crazy, right?
Right. So grooming is like, yo, and here goes a guy who on his day off is committing the sin of going to his barbershop and encounters this. As I've said before, you know, to me, it's like, where you going, boy? Where's your papers?
Pretty much, right.
You know what I mean? You're supposed to produce, and for those folks who know a little bit about constitutional law, if you are not, you know, under suspicion of a crime or whatnot, you do not have to answer these questions, particularly on foot. If you're in a vehicle, that changes a little bit because by having a vehicle on the highway or the streets or whatever, you know, you're contracted to some different things. But legally, you are really not bound to answer any questions.
Right.
So I want people to be aware of their rights, but get it from lawyers, get it from ACLU. This whole, you know, look up Know Your Rights online, and our brother Keith here actually did an excellent job of both keeping his cool, and exercising his rights.
Thank you.
Because that could have went super differently another couple of ways. If he had took it up another notch of aggression, then that could have went that way. If he would have not been as knowledgeable in knowing what to answer, how to answer, and what not to answer, then that could have went another way. So
it comes down to common sense too, you know. Don't let nobody get you out of character, and just, you know, like a random person. If a random person come up to you, ask you all these questions, you're not gonna answer it unless they're interested in you. They're not interested in getting to know me, you know? So you just play out every situation the same. It's just, you know, the guys in blue just like to abuse it a little bit, you know? Pretty much common sense going down the road. Because I honestly don't know all my rights, but I know that I don't have to talk to you if I don't want to.
Right.
You know?
You knew enough to get you through. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Okay, so now okay, thank you, brother. Chief made a comment in there. Thank you, bro. Another thing I wanted to get to is 2 points, and this is right where we're gonna bring it all home. So 2 points. When this thing happens, once again, most cases that I deal with, somebody has been severely beaten or unfortunately killed. Right. Or wrongfully convicted of a crime or something like that, right? So in this case, luckily, it was a pain in the butt. You went home, boom, 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 boom. But these things now have a aftermath. And so I want to talk a little bit about the aftermath. 2 points on that. One, who could have foreseen that this thing got as popular as it did? I mean, for it to get onto, nighttime television, Desus and Mero and all that.
A lot of people have been sharing it everywhere, yeah.
So that, so that thing. So what do you feel about how much attention it got? And then put that into relation to what we're going to talk about next with what does that do?
Well, I mean, every incident with the cops get attention. Like, just like George Floyd, a whole bunch of attention around the world. People's looting, like we're looking for answers. But because it's spreading, we're still not getting the change that we want, And as a people, we definitely got to come together and fight a little harder. I mean, I don't know what we can do, but all these views that we're getting we should be getting some type of solutions out of it. And I mean, I don't know what's really going on in the world. I haven't really been on that. I've just been trying to clear my mind. I got a lot of stuff going on. But with all these views, we definitely need to get some type of solutions. That's how I feel about when I see views, and we still not getting what we want. Things are still happening. Like, I could still get stopped tomorrow, and I didn't get what I want. So the views is just a number to me, and solutions are even better.
And so that's what I want to bring up, because I think a lot of people would think, well, 1 million people saw this. Well, they can't sweep this under the rug. They got to do something about this.
They always sweep it, yeah.
So now, after you and I met, we did the press conference and all that. A lot of people weren't there for the next levels, but we went in and we filed all the paperwork, everything we were supposed to do, and had those initial meetings with the Internal Affairs Department of the Boston Police Department. So now, what has happened from that since then? Have you ever been contacted again since then from Internal Affairs?
Not at all.
Not at all.
So the day we went to Internal Affairs, we put in the report, and the day we went to the cafeteria. I was looked at like I was some type of predator to them, And at that point in time, I just realized that, I don't want to have beef with the police, even though I have no type of feelings towards them. They got everything towards us. But after that day, it was just like, wow, this is like a war. It's like a war with the people that's supposed to be protecting us, law enforcement. And it's just crazy. The aftermath is just, I don't feel safe around them. That's how I feel, And
so since then too, did strange things happen to you? Tickets on cars, other family members harassed, any strange phone calls, death threats, any of that type of stuff?
Nah, it slowed down really quick. Like, while it was happening, definitely I got death threats. But after leaving that Internal Affairs office, like, the looks on their faces, I didn't even want I didn't want to be a part of that, I do not want to be known as Keith Antonio, the person who, put Crossing under, like they looking at me like I degraded Crossing, when that wasn't my goal. my goal was to get to the barbershop and that's it and go about my day. But now I'm being looked at like some type of I don't know, some type of opponent towards them. So I just, after that day, I'm like, I wanted to leave it alone. And, you know, I feel now that I left it alone, I feel a little safer, you know? You get what I mean?
Absolutely. And these are common themes. So after something happens to a person, you minding your own business, you didn't do nothing wrong, a situation like this falls on top of you, and then all of a sudden you public enemy number one.
Right.
And this has even happened in the cases of, you know, family members where they certainly didn't do their loved one was killed or beat up or whatever, and now they treating mama and auntie and everybody, they treating everybody in the family like, yo, it's the plague. And it's just such a, it like you said, it's a war, and it's kind of a us versus them thing. And this is the reason I'm doing these conversations, because I want folks to understand not only what happens to people, but then what happens in the aftermath of, okay, no justice in the system, whether you file the paperwork, if you try to do the right thing, if you try to do the wrong, or not the wrong thing, but if you try to raise hell about it, there's no justice there either. These cops largely get over with it. And okay, so on to that. So the cop in that thing, Zachary Crossan, we did a thing at the time. I don't want to talk about it too much, only because legally, I don't want to get goofy, right? But that officer Crossan has, you know, he has his own history and record, and he has multiple infractions. And since this has happened, what has happened is, you know, in my eyes, he has been promoted. Now, if you, you know, so they got him out of Roxbury, and the first thing that happened is they sent him to Alston Brighton, which in my mind is a promotion. You're going from, you know, boom, to, you know, college problems and, you know, busting keg parties and stuff. You know what I mean?
Right.
All right. Then the next thing was, one of his family members is connected, and I'm being very vague on purpose. One of his family members is a high, you know, ranking official as well, and worked in a very specialized unit. And also, too, what happened is then later he ends up doing training for this specialized unit. And so these are some of the trends that end up happening after a major scandal, where instead of these people, you know, being punished, or even if they're punished in the public eye and, ooh, shame on you, big scandal, the mechanism, the good old boy network seeks to wrap their arms around them and say, yo, listen, forget about what the world's saying. We got you. And that later they're either given promotions or given some sort of cushy position, or they are awarded, or, you know, they're given some sort of party where people raise, you know, several $100,000s for them, or whatever. So these are types of the things that we've seen, and we've seen these similar trends in the case of Crossan. But the most telling thing here is, here you have one of the most well-known cases of what they've now, you know, whether you want to call it racial profiling, whether you want to call it the FIO, the field interrogation observations, you know, whether you want to call it an illegal stop, you know, under whatever category you're talking about, this is a major factor in police reform. And here we have a case that happened to be viewed by millions of people on simultaneous platforms. And this guy still hasn't got a phone call back. So what hope do you have? See, because that's what I'm saying. If they can sweep it under the rug, under the watchful eye of the world, what you gonna do? Okay? And not for nothing too, for all those people with the media and all that, the second bite at the apple is never as sexy as the first. Because D'Souza and Mero, for instance, I don't know if they'll do this story. Hey, y'all, remember 2 years ago when we talked about that crazy stuff that happened in Boston? Yeah, still no resolve, still no justice. So the follow-up story is never juicy as the initial one. You know what I mean? But we got to stay vigilant on it, because that's another reason of how they get to sweep it under the rug. Please, I think, you're on mute, Keith, again. Unmute yourself.
I don't know how that keep happening. But yeah, I hear you, definitely.
So I want to open it up now. Anybody got any particular questions? Or anything? And if anybody here is present from the media, I got some responses from some folks who said that they were going to tune in. I don't know if anybody here is from the media. And if not, this, that's the blessing of the technology now. This is recording. So any media who could not make it at this 10:30 a.m. hour, this will be there for them to dissect at a later time. And hopefully, give some light to this story as well. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to, raise your hand, put it in the chat, unmute yourself, what have you. Any questions or comments right now?
Everybody's shy.
I was gonna say, don't be shy.
Everybody's shy, man. Don't be shy. I'm cool.
Hello.
Yo, tapping in from LA. I was just wondering, thanks, Daryl, for inviting me to this. All these stories are just they're the worst, and it's got to change. So I'm just asking, like, who do we put the pressure on in terms of who is the decision maker? Who is the local district attorney? Because, yeah, I'm with that. Well, who are the people that are in charge, and like, let's get the sit-in going, because they're not going to call. They're not going to call, man. The whole system's so racist. Like, they don't care. They don't care at all. We know this. So, and they're like standing up for racial justice in Boston is a bunch of a huge white organization that goes and does sit-ins at this place, because you're right. It should be white people that are going in there and saying, like, look, what the hell? You're not caring about anyone of color, so there is that sort of, ally organizations out there. So peace. Thank you.
All right, peace. So in terms of who this goes to, the decision makers, ultimately this situation here, no charges arose from this, because there was no, once again, a physical attack or anything. This is a disciplinary thing, which is basically an internal thing, which then it goes to internal affairs. So for instance, if you're parking and an officer says, hey, you, F you, move out of there, you can write a complaint on an officer just for the F you, and he called you an idiot or something, right? That's, whatever it is, disrespectful treatment or whatever it is. But in any event, my point is those type of things, the DA doesn't see those. The DA handles criminal charges, drunk driving, and he, crashed into my car. He beat me within an inch of my life. Those are the types of things that the DA sees. These are internal affairs. You say, but there's a civilian review board. There is not a civilian review board here in Boston. And in fact, we're hopefully working on one now. What there is here is what is called the co-op. Oh, and this is actually a great example. The co-op, Civilian Ombudsman Oversight Panel. The co-op, as it was established previously, was able to take a sampling of cases from internal affairs where a person would make a complaint to internal affairs. The complaint would get dismissed. The person would then appeal it, and then the co-op could then look at it. And they could only look at 10% of those cases. So that was the closest we had to civilian review here, and it was just not. A case like, for instance, in this case with Keith, wouldn't even make it there. Why? It went to IAD, but as you hear, he doesn't even get a chance to appeal it because they ain't even adjudicated it. He ain't even got a phone call back. And, you know, as far as they concerned, I guess the investigation is still open, right? So this is what I'm saying. You can't never make it to appeal if it ain't finished. So the hope is that we would have a true civilian review board, and the future recommendations that have to be adopted by the mayor and the police commissioner, they just have to agree to certain timelines where people can expect this thing to be done. You know, once again, to have the most publicized case that I can remember, you know what I mean? And you still can't get no doggone answers. That to me is indicative of, you know, a bottleneck there's a clog in the pipe, and we need some Drano, right? Or some Pepto, whichever one you want to go with, right? But that we have to clear that up. And so that's the main thing. Anybody else with comments, questions, or there's stuff in the chat room too?
Yeah, I got a quick comment here. This is Chief. Thank you for the time. I wanted to thank you, Keith, you know what I mean, for handling yourself well. I saw the whole thing go down, and I really wanted to bring a couple things to comment. As we all know, us Black men, Black families are under attack constantly throughout the country, and it's more evident on the news.
Right.
You know, and everybody says we have to support Black men, we have to support Black families, you know, we have to change what's going on. But what happens in reality, right? All Black men here in Boston know at a certain point in time, they know that we can be accosted just like Keith, or even worse, much, much worse, any day, right? This is just the reality we deal with. And dealing with that reality, the fact is there's really not much support when things like that happen to us, or if something like that was to happen to us. So even in Keith's case, we can see how it plays out. We can see how it plays out. There's very little support for people like us, for people like Keith in the community when these things happen. It's people like Jamal Crawford, frankly, the same folks, you know, and not really a whole bunch of other people out there surrounding Black men to really support us and make us part of the community like that. So I want to bring this to everyone's attention, because we have to value the people and the organizations that are truly supporting us, not just talking about it, you know, and this is something that affects all of us here. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If you're a Black man, we all know any day our lives can end, or we can be accosted and we can be totally disrespected with no accountability. And so we ask, how do we change these things? We need to support the people and organizations that have been at the forefront of trying to change these things. You know what I mean? And I think for me, that's really the only answer for me. I don't really see much else out there. So I just want to bring that forward when things like this happen, when we're constantly hounded. But if we're to be shot, attacked by police, and focused on, targeted like this, where's the real support for us when these things happen? I'm saying there's really not much support. I'm saying there's just a bunch of public noise. And so this story right here, and Keith, thank you for coming forward and speaking, because you're really illustrating exactly that this is really what our lives are like out there, and we're expected to accept and deal with this fact. And then we have to go through all the lip service and fake concern of others who can't do the very, very simple things of supporting the people and organizations that have been at the forefront of changing this reality. So I just wanted to bring that. I can be long-winded. I just appreciate the time to be able to bring those things forward, because it's a big concern to me as somebody who wants to be a part of a community, grow, live, have a nice feedback, grow to be an old man. I want to be in a place that I respect and that respects me, you know what I mean? And that I'm not targeted all the time and stuff like that. So that means we need people to support us to have a healthy community. So thank you for the platform. Thank you, gentlemen, and everything. And that's my 2 piece.
Thank you. You're welcome, man.
Word.
Yeah, sometimes in a situation, you don't know who to turn to. I definitely agree with that, you know?
Yeah, I want to jump in with a comment. Good morning, fellas.
Good morning.
So I want to also second, you know, the big thank you to Keith, because what's happened is this is an occurrence that probably every black man in this city has had to deal with at one time or another. And for him to have the courage and the ability to pull out that camera, hold it steady, keep his cool, and really capture the kind of subtle hate that this officer was giving off, it was obvious. And this is like, it's like getting your cherry popped as black men. You gotta, you know, especially even as black fathers specifically. I got two younger sons. You have to have a conversation with them about when this first incident is going to happen, not if it's going to happen, not how it's going to happen, but when it's going to happen. Mm-hmm. Mine was probably about 13, and I probably had 7 or 8 since then. So the whole concept of the way these things play out, the police end up being the frontline soldiers in this whole racial injustice push to incarcerate black men. So one thing that Keith mentioned, and I want to touch on, he mentioned he's kind of been out the loop and working on himself. Well, you may have seen last night the whole NBA shut down. I don't know if you're a basketball fan or you follow what's going on with LeBron and those fellas.
Forward to that Lakers game too.
Yeah. So the NBA shut down. Major League Baseball had 4 or 5 games stopped. The top tennis player, Japanese, she's part Japanese, part Haitian. She quit from the tournament she was in.
That's good.
So within the last 24 hours, all these things have happened like that. So what Keith needs to understand is, Keith, you're a part of that. You know what I mean? Like by you bringing awareness and you having the courage to really take on this issue. Well, this is the whole world is now coming around to where you've been, where we've been, what we've had to deal with, and it's great to see it. But there's also a lot more work to do. And I'll also add, one of the biggest things that really bothers me is the IA process. So if, maybe we could talk a little bit about what are some of the options we can do, because just the facts of you having to go to Boston Police Headquarters and walk in that building and look at all these old angry white Irish red-nosed faces, it doesn't create any sense of justice. It doesn't make anybody feel like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the place I need to be to get this resolved. Right. Because it just looks like they're ready to just throw more logs onto the fire, and you look, your pants are hanging. Let's charge them with that. So like they trying to find another reason to reel you in. So the anxiety that you feel when they even approach, it's like, listen, as black men, we learn we don't want to have any interaction with y'all. We don't ask me what the weather is. Don't nothing. Don't even tell me you like my outfit. Nothing at all, because it can always lead to some drama. And 9 times out of 10, it's going to lead to some drama. So just understand, your small ripple in the pond created this big media impact, but it's all part of this larger issue that's going to exist at least in America for as long as we're alive. But you played your part. You can continue to play your part, because you know what it feels like to push back. And it wasn't even a hard push. You know what I mean? It was pushed back, but it was just like you stood your ground in a sense. Like, yo, you can't just run up on me violating. And that's really what it comes down. It comes down to them running up on you, looking to violate you. Run me, job me, check your pockets. Or where you going? What's your name? What's up with you? Where's your mother? Where's your father? And it's disrespectful. They try to compromise your manhood, and they try to sun you. And then at that point, it's like, oh, okay, this is the hate you want to give off. Well, all right, I'm gonna ingest it, and I'm gonna walk away more angry, more upset. So it's mental warfare, man. But keep your head up, and brothers like Jamal. I do a lot of work with Maul in terms of just these issues over the years, over the decades, because it's a lifelong journey. This doesn't stop. You can't just decide I'm gonna get off this black male train. Like, we were born into this. It's great. It's a great thing to have. It's a great thing to carry, but it's so hated. So you gotta embrace the hate.
Thank you, C. Yeah, that. But yeah, with the whole NBA things, that's definitely big, you know. 'Cause that's what America relies on for entertainment. So with all these big sports industries going down, they're making a stand for us, you know. The people with the wealthy people with money, they're gonna be the ones that gotta start it, and I'm glad they're doing it, you know, because this is definitely new for all of us, and we never seen anything like this where NBA players are canceling their own games. You know, they got all the power, so I'm glad they're using it to their advantage, to our advantage.
I'm actually, actually thinking about this because as we've seen lately, the Celtics or the Patriots or the Red Sox have gotten increasingly vocal about these issues. But the one problem that I've always noted, even with activists and so on and so forth here, they never seem to focus on cases in Boston.
Right.
They claiming all these names that happen out there and out there. And with some of these families that I'm dealing with, particularly where their loved one is killed or what have you, nobody ever seems to like mention a lot of these names. There'll be a couple, but I mean, unfortunately, there's a list. And I would love to see some of these, not just the athletic folks and the athletes themselves, but the corporations or whatnot who are right here to take more of an interest of, what has been going on right here in Boston as a city and Massachusetts as a state. But one more point to your coverage, because C brought up a point of like us going in IA. It's deep because too, I've tried to help a lot of people through this process, and a lot of people generally tap out at that point, So to actually say, okay, I'm willing to file, and then to be like, okay, and then we going up in the building, right? And if you remember at the time, like they knew we was coming. So when we went up in there, and they knew that people were watching. So when we went up in there, what the tension that we felt, that's even light work compared to what it would have been had they known nobody was looking. You know what I'm saying? So it gets even crazy. We had just did the press conference and we like, yo, we going to file these charges and whoop, whoop, whoop. That gave us a sense of cover. So whatever treatment we got was the nice treatment. So you can imagine if that was their nice treatment.
That's what was coming, right?
You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
So it gets super deep. And once again, for another person who is not politically connected at all, who is not, doesn't have an advocate or anybody, who didn't handle their situation swimmingly, who does not have it on video, who, all of them type of things, it would have just been something else. And in terms of what Chief said, in terms of like, the care and concern for the black man, I've been in these situations far too often where at the end of the day, like I said, this is why, you the golden child in some regard, you lucky, because that whole story could have went a whole nother way. And then the only people who care is mama, baby mama, and kids, talking about who's going to care for the black, who's going to lift that thing up. Because even for some of these movements, let's say it's Black Lives Matter or whatever, oftentimes our lives only hold value if we're dead. Then it's, ooh, or we're locked up. Free, free Maul or RIP Maul. I don't want to be RIP and I don't want to be freed. You know what I mean? I want to live my life.
Right.
You dig? So it gets real goofy with that. But yeah, so Chief and C both brought up some good points, and I noticed some other points in the chat, but it looks like some other people have something to say. I want to give some opportunity for other people with comments.
I have one question. Jamal, you had touched on it earlier about how the video had reached a higher platform, but who's to say that the higher platform that it reached before is going to talk about how the conversation is being continued? I asked in the chat, and another point you made, like, I respect the fact that athletes take a stand and, they're finally speaking out against certain things. But like you said, what about speaking out about some of the things that happen in our own very areas and have been going on for years? So my whole thing was, how do we continue to push these conversations properly to those who aren't aware, who may have a story themselves, or may know someone with a story, like you said, who may not have it on video, who may have it on video, but doesn't know who to bring it to and things of that nature. Like, how do we continue to push this forward?
Okay, so a lot of them things I've already like done in the past and the present, but then it's one of those things. It's like if I have the dopest party ever, but only 5 people know about it, then only 5 people are going to be at the dopest party ever. Exactly. So unfortunately, we got to make it known, and that's the part of like the viral and all that. Okay, so the athletes and the entertainers, to talk about what we've talked about in the revolutionary circles for a long time, is we understand athletes, entertainers are not at all, they're never going to lead the movement at all, never, never, never. But what they can do is they can go like this. You know, they can point people just like what they do for Nike and alcohol and everything else, right? So they could point people to what's popping. Locally, if you are a Boston Celtic, what's old boy? See, this is how bad I am.
Jaylen Brown?
No. I'm old, you know, this is older. Old boy who came here, Paul Pierce, let's say. Paul Pierce came here from Compton, right? So you already know about the hood, and now you're in Boston. And you in Boston, but now you're a millionaire. But then you was in Boston, and you got touched by the hood in Boston. You got stabbed. Could have ended up your whole career, right? So all I'm saying is that if there is a way for athletes to lend their voices at where they're at, then we need to use them and pull them into that. How do we continue? The things that we've already done. Let's say we've created a bad apple. Oh, Jacob, if you could put these things in the chat.
Apple hotline, the mass police reform timeline.
Exactly, yo. So these are the types of ways we're trying to build. We also put together the list of, you know, people who've been killed by the police here, shot by police.blackstonian.org. So those things are there, but those things have to be known by more than our little small circle, right? And also too, everybody that we think is smart or paying attention ain't. So you would be surprised that when I'm talking to people like who are in elected office or in law enforcement or whatever, they don't know this stuff. And I'm like, damn, this is in your arena. So little old Jamal knows this stuff just because I'm a nerd and I'm interested in this stuff. And you, like, cops who are unaware of the history of the cop killings, I'm assuming that they're still stuck on like Levi Hart and stuff from like the 80s. You know what I mean? So it's just weird. People who you think are in the know are not necessarily in the know. So each one, reach one, teach one. We got to keep pushing forward the information, and we got to stay on the grizzly.
Definitely. I appreciate you for answering that question. And Keith, I appreciate you for sharing your story.
No problem, Dondre.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for your input.
Word. Anybody else want to go into the chat and just make sure, because you were one of the comments that I was getting, so I'm glad you voiced up and said your comment. You saved me one. I want to make sure that we got everybody else. Is there anybody else who has anything to say? And particularly too, not for nothing, you know, shout out to the sisters out there. Please, you know, would love to hear some sister input as well. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Kobe look like she got something to say.
Oh, all right. Sorry, guys. I've been kind of itching. First off, I just want to say,
moving, you're like, it's my turn.
Yeah, it's because I'm at work and I work in a group home setting, so I kind of just I want my clients to hear it as well as like having some input so you guys can hear it. So first off, I want to kind of say thank you, Jamal. Thank you for kind of opening it up and putting out this whole Zoom meeting thing for people. I never knew about it, but for people to kind of come and hear other stories and stuff. And Keith, you're what they call the GOAT these days. Like, I don't know how old you are or if you're like, you know, in my generation or whatever the case may be, but I'm a 90s kid, and I just really want to say thank you to, because people in my generation especially, and like coming up right now, it's kind of like, it will be kind of frowned upon for like you recording them or do like the way you recorded those cops with like such like confidence and courage. It was like, I think the reason your situation played out the way it played out, not to say it like that, you didn't do anything, but it played out because it was like, you wasn't recording those cops to be sarcastic or kind of following a trend of just being funny. You was recording them because they was kind of wrongfully bothering you. And you like, you weren't scared. You weren't like afraid. You stood up on your own. So I just really want to say thank you. And I kind of want to know like, what's the next step? Like, we can share your story. We can share everybody's story. I mean, until ancient history, but it's kind of like, what can we possibly do in a physical form to like kind of come together as men, as women, as young men and women to make it stop? When I was growing up, I'm not sure if anybody on here knows, but there was something called the Ella J. Baker House. And some of my mentors and the people who kind of like, you know, they stayed on me, they stayed on like the men growing up around me. And it was like, they were people from jail. They were people that's done wrong, that like from everywhere. But it was kind of like, they knew where they messed up at and they wanted to make it better for me and others under me growing up. So it's kind of like, where do we go? We had people that helped us. I mean, some of the things I see these young kids doing, I was like, I would never, but it's like, well, how do we help them? It's easy to share it. It's easy to get on here and talk about it, but what can we really do in a physical form to show them like, we're tired of it. Right. We physically seen with our eyes, George Floyd murdered. And that's just what stuck because it's like the newest thing happening. But it's like, we seen George Floyd and then the Ahmaud guy and then Breonna. It's like, it kind of never stopped. It was kind of like,
still happening, right?
It just kept happening. It's just like, when is it gonna stop? What can we do to stop? And Alex, I don't know if you can hear me or if you're paying attention. It's like, I wasn't trying to argue with you in the chat, but it's kind of like, it's good. And this is not racist. This is not anything, but it's good that we have like people that are kind of like white, that want to stand up, that want to hear us, that want us to be as great as everybody else. But it's just like, we need more people like yourself, Alex. We need more people like you to show that it's just like, we're not wrong. We just have a different skin complexion.
I be looking too. I be looking too but there are people
Absolutely.
Like, it's not the people I grew up with. It's not the people I grew up with. It's the people I went out to Standing Rock with. It's
that you don't know from nowhere.
It's standing up for racial justice. Yeah, I mean, we gotta, and it's an uncomfortable thing for me too. But yeah, just like reaching out and letting more people know because it bubbles up. So I'm excited to push all this. Yeah,
being comfortable, being uncomfortable. You have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation to know how comfortable you can adapt and how comfortable you can be. So listen, like I said, I work in a group home. It's a little different from what's really happening, but it's like, even like I work like with white people, so to say. And it's like, they see me as like I don't know, like yo, Kobe, you're the shit. Like, you're black, we're white, we get it. Like we want the people to hear our voice as well, but like, I'm their support system. So if these are people with intellectual and mental disabilities that know the way of the world and know like, nah, Kobe, it wasn't right that this cop seen you driving with us and we're all white and you're black, and they were ready to kind of profile you like, wait, is she kidnapping those people? Like, it's that they can see it with mental disabilities, and it's just like, what can we do? How do we change it physically?
It's tough. It's gonna take
how? It's gonna take all of us. There's like, we're tired of this shit. We're tired of it.
Okay, so not for nothing, my number one suggestion is this, and this is something I've come to in my years of study and revolution and all this type of stuff. So you get angry. Yes, get angry. If you're not angry, you're numb. You know what I mean? You blind, deaf, and dumb if you ain't angry. But you got to focus the anger, right? And so when we get to the point where we're going to focus the anger, and, you know, if you deal with a spiritual thing, there's a thing called righteous anger, right? Because, you know, if you see a kid getting raped or something, you're not supposed to get angry at that? Yeah. But it's not enough to get angry. If you can, take action. Prevent that. Stop it. Thwart it. Right? If you can't and you find out about it after the fact, then expose it. Report it. So what I'm saying is that what we have to, in my opinion, keep our focus on is policies, plans, and proposals. I call it the whole rah-rah, shish, boom, bah. So a lot of this stuff the folks is doing, you know, to blow off steam or feel emotionally better or whatever, it's great. They got posters and they got glue sticks with glitter in them, and they say justice now and all that. That's all great and wonderful. But you know what really beats that is folks, okay, like these protests up here in Boston, there were big protests, you know, tens of thousands of people. You know what beats that though? Going to the State House all at the same day and demanding legislation. Having a policy and a plan that you say, this is what we want implemented. Going to the city of Boston, City Hall or the BPD, not on a Sunday when it's closed, not at 6 p.m. when it's closed, but like Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 p.m., and preferably not even on a Friday because that's a bad media day.
Monday, where?
You know, and you go to City Hall, you go to the State House, or you go to the BPD, and you have a preconceived list of demands, not something that folks wrote on the way there, not something that folks scribbled out on big posters or are passing notes to the speaker, a predetermined agenda. So for a long time here, we've been trying to put together a Boston Black agenda. For a long time here, we've been trying to do the police reform thing and all that. So all I can say to everybody is get in where you fit in. But the very first thing that you can do, if you were gung-ho and you wanted to join the Army, because go America, the very first thing that America says is, you're no good to us until you go through basic training. You have to be able to do 20 push-ups, you know, run a mile, swim a quarter mile, and, you know, at least that basic training before we can even deal with you. So the best thing that you can do for each of us is to arm yourselves with knowledge that is going to make you efficient. And if you care about police reform and you're in Boston or Massachusetts and you're unaware of a lot of these cases, you just got to inform yourself. Shotbypolice.blackstonian.org. Once again, Keith is one of the lucky ones. He's here to tell his story. We're not talking to mama. We're not talking to baby mama who says, my Keith never came home that night.
We still here.
Still here. Live and kicking. And looking good, Playboy.
You know that. Hair grown out and shit.
And not for nothing, too. Actually, too, this is a good way to kind of segue this. This is a good way to segue this, and we'll end on this note. For the stereotype of you being some sort of incorrigible black man who had the audacity to be out around noontime in the middle of the day, you know, with no aim or whatnot, let's talk about who you are. You know, the work you've done, your fatherhood, your photography, your travels. Tell people a little bit about the mysterious man of mystery, international Mr. Keith.
Right. Well, that's good. I'm glad you even said that. You know, I like I said, I don't want to be known as having beef with the police because I don't. I got nothing towards them, but they got everything towards us. But yeah, I mean, on every day, I'm a father of 2. Love my daughter. She's 8. My son is 4. And I do videography, photography. You know, I finally got my own apartment, as you guys can see. I love to show it off. It's a studio, but you know, I'm just a happy camper. You know, I just like to live life without no worries, and you know, we just got a bunch of mishaps and obstacles that we got to go through, and you know, but I'm good. I definitely got a strong head on my shoulders, and yeah. Keep us here.
Loving family. I see you all the time with like your brother. You got mad cousins and friends. Like I see positivity. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I want to show. You know, that's another, like what I said. I don't want to be known with the cops because that's not who I am. You know, I walked around that time when that video happened. I was walking down the street. People that I don't know was like, "Oh, you that dude from the video, right?" Like, yeah, the publicity is good, but it's like, that's not what I want to be known for because that's not who I am. I'm Keith. I play basketball. I take photos, videos. I got 2 kids that I love, and that's who I am, you know?
That's right. Every time I look on your Facebook page or whatever, it looks like you living life and loving life to the fullest. You know what I mean? You and the team. And so, not for nothing, you know, I'm glad I met you. I just hate that we met under these little punk
right.
hole circumstances. You know what I'm saying?
I'm glad I met you too, and it's a small world. You all know my big brother and everything, you know.
Exactly.
Definitely. So you definitely a brother to me, Jamal, for real.
Absolutely, man. Much love to you and the fam. Word.
Yeah.
Word. And now too, you know, we gonna come through. You know, we gonna come through the new apartment. Maybe we got to figure out a COVID situation, but I you know what I mean. Come through, bless up.
So I'm not too big on COVID. So man, feel free if you want to stop by. Let me know. Anytime.
Word.
Yes,
All
sir.
right. So anybody else got any last comments or whatever before we blast off? Anybody else? Particularly.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to Kobe's comment because you know, she makes a good point. All of this can seem very overwhelming when you're trying to take on the monstrous monster of white supremacy. So two things I'll say. One is an old African proverb about how do you eat an elephant? Mm-hmm. And the answer is one bite at a time. You know what I mean? That's how you eat an elephant. And the way I look at this social justice fight and this fight that we're in as Black people, I use a sports analogy, all right? In football, we're just trying to get a first down. So it's up to our generation and our time on this earth to try to get 10 yards. We don't got to get to the end zone. At some point, we're going to get to the end zone.
Right.
If you look at life on a map, we've been in America enslaved for 400 years. We ruled the world for probably 150,000 years. So knowledge itself is important. Understanding our history is important, and understanding that this isn't this American thing. This isn't who we are. This isn't us. This is a European lifestyle that we've been forced to adopt. So when Jamal talks about knowledge itself, that may be the most important part of it. Is just understanding our history, understanding how great we are, understanding we're the first people on this earth, and at some point we're going to be the last people on this earth. So let's just get that first down. You know, we don't. It's coming. Just don't get sacked. Let's not lose 10 yards and have to look back and tell our kids, sorry, man, we failed y'all. We didn't do nothing.
Nope. Thank you. I appreciate you touching back. Thank you.
Yeah.
Word.
That was deep. Okay.
All right, y'all. So I think that's about it. And I think we'll end on that note. And by the way, elephants are delicious.
Yo, I tried it. It did sound good. I'm like,
I gotta try it.
Gotta try it, right?
Little dirt, little hot sauce.
Little hot sauce, right? Ooh.
I like it.
Where you get that from, though? Like, there's a restaurant out here. Like, what's up? Oh, no. Spread the word, spread the love.
I don't even know if that's an African proverb.
You probably don't even eat elephant.
Elephant. I need some elephant, alligator, all of it.
Oh, the alligator's good. Alligator's good.
Well, if the world keeps going the way it's going, I'll meet all of y'all at the Franklin Park Zoo when they run out of food and Stop and Shop.
I'm telling you.
Right. We going after tigers.
Thank you again, Jamal.
All right, y'all. Bless up, man. So for real, you know, this is love. And, you know, we talk about these subjects and, you know, just once again, the most important thing we could do, spread the word, pass this on, pass on the links, pass on the information, so that they cannot tell the lie that everything's okay in Boston. We don't have any problems in Boston. Hey, everything's good. Boston's strong and all this type of stuff. How could I forget? At the time of Keith, at the time that this all happened, you know who was one of the biggest persons to talk bad about you? Group was the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association and the union. Oh, they were talking so dirty about you.
They were definitely talking dirty, yeah.
And currently, the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association president, he was the president at the time, is right now under charges for raping 4 children.
Yeah.
His name is Patrick Rose.
Patrick, yep.
And he was the Boston Police Patrolmen's Association president at the time of this case. and he had a whole or actually no, he wasn't at the time, but he was still high ranking. But he had a whole bunch to say about you. What you was doing at 12:30 in the afternoon. No, what was he doing at 12:30 in the afternoon?
Where's your alibi?
That's crazy.
Crazy.
Man.
That's a crazy
You're the
fact.
GOAT, Keith. You're the
All
GOAT.
right.
You're the GOAT.
All right.
Thank you.
So let's
Make
keep
sure
it.
your son never has to see that.
Let's keep it focused, and as long as we stay clean and you know, do what we do, but stay clean. You know, as I be saying on my little lives when we're done, you know, stay focused on righteousness and you know, keep away from the ratchetness. You know, we all right. All right, y'all.
Dude, thank you for that. Thank you for that.
All right, bless y'all. Have a great day. One love.
Power to the people.
Peace.